Welcome to the System Simplified podcast, where we feature top leaders who share stories on how to successfully systemize a business. Now, let's get started with the show.
Hello, Wendy Klevit here with the System Simplified podcast, where we interview top entrepreneurs, founders, and thought leaders about systematizing a business. And this podcast is being brought to you by Business Success Consulting Group. At Business Success Consulting Group, we create custom processes and tailor-made business systems so businesses can thrive and grow. All right, and today's guest is Wendy. Hello, Wendy.
Hi, Adi.
It's so awesome to have you here. I really appreciate you decided to be a guest on this podcast because you have a great story to share, and I'd love to share it with our listeners. So Wendy Marvin is the CEO of Matrix Roofing, which is a roofing company in Washington, very successful roofing company. And Wendy has a unique story how she basically that's a company that she started with her now ex-husband, and they've been having it they ran it for 15 years until you took it over and in 2017, and you're going to share a little bit of that story and the moral of that story, which I think is very inspiring. And also, I help Wendy and the company to create processes and procedures for the company. So we're going to discuss how having processes and procedures help in terms of employee development, employee onboarding, and growing and scaling the business. So, Wendy, over to you. Tell us your story.
Thanks, Adi. I'm excited to be here with you. You've been a big benefit to our company, and we're very excited to work with you. So story long term short is I founded the company in 2007. My ex-husband and I, he was the roofing experience and I was the business side, and we ran that together until 2016. He ran into an existential crisis at that point and just kind of decided to end the marriage, and we worked together for about a year after that. And then found out that the trust was no longer there. And so, basically I kind of said, you go or I go, and fully thought that I was going to be leaving and going to do something different. Before I was in roofing, my background was in healthcare, and I was contemplating going back and all the fun. And the next day when we met, he basically said, I don't know how to do what you do. And I kind of repugnantly replied that, well, I can hire an estimator. And so we made the decision for him to leave. And I remember going back into my office at the end of that conversation and sitting down and going, what did I just do? And kind of second guessing everything. And what was funny over the next few months as we, transitioned him out and met with all the employees to make sure everybody was going to stay and let our customers know and everything, is I just realized that I was the company behind the scenes. He was the face and the person out there, with all the accolades and all the, I always laugh about like riding in the car with the princess wave. He was the one that was out there doing all of that. And I was the one behind the scenes running everything. And it was a really big lesson for me, and a really big, I think it's a feminine problem in that, when we're strong females and we are out there in the world. I remember growing up being told I was too much, too loud, too smart, too whatever. And I think that we instinctively kind of take a back seat. And so stepping into the light was scary and exciting. And we just haven't looked back. It's been 5 years now, and we've refined processes. We've cleaned up the company. We've just kind of taken things to another level. And, you were a big part of that for us. And I think that that's just a huge lesson for ladies. It's just stop dulling your shine and just step out there and be who you are and stop apologizing.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So let's talk about some of the processes that you implemented in the company, because you've done a tremendous job. And, you really took each part of the company and decided to implement and create the processes, document, implement, and run with it, right? So let's say we have other roofing contractors or other contractors that are listening to us right now. What are the main areas that you would suggest having processes?
Well, everything. I mean, but to categorize things, if you're going to break them down, would be definitely you want to talk about your customer intake process.
Mhm.
And, and I want to clarify this is I think what's really important here is to be thinking about these things as they are being experienced by your customer. And then kind of what we found that was unusual after working with you was as they're experienced by your employees. Because our initial, blush of coming to you was just that we have grown. So, 15 years in business. And I think at the time we were together, we were 13 years in business. But we just realized that, you add a process when something becomes new, and then you add another process when something becomes new. And then pretty soon you've got employees doing like 6 things to bring one customer on board, and it's not efficient. And so, we were thinking about it from the customer standpoint, and you really helped us from the employee standpoint. So customer intake, customer management. I think we get really hung up from a contracting standpoint on installation and project management, which is really important. But if you can't sell it to get it there, you don't really have a lot of business. And so, that would be the other stage. And then the last stage I would say would be customer follow-up post installation and keeping your name in front of those customers so that you can obtain future sales or references.
Absolutely. And I know that for you, what you created is that customer experience, right? So, and I understand what you're saying in terms of like, we looked at it also from the employee experience, making sure that like internally they know what they're doing in terms of servicing the customer. But you're very dedicated on making sure that your customers are really well taken care of, and that they will be also make sure that they are customers for life, right? Either repeat customers or bringing referrals, but it's that customer experience that is so important. And that is one of the reasons of documenting and creating those processes, so everyone will have the same experience, and you can replicate that experience. It's not a hit or miss, but it's something that is actually happening, right? It happens every single time.
Yep.
So,
Yep.
what would be your recommendations to contractors in order to improve the customer experience and making sure that the customers are actually experiencing the utmost service?
Well, I think first and foremost, you have to ask for feedback. And sometimes that stings a little because you think you're doing a great job. And a lot of times you find out that you're not, that there are places that you've got holes in what you're doing. For us, we discovered that we were doing a really great job on onboarding our customers, a really great job on getting them into the system and explaining how things are going to go. But then there was a delay on installation. And sometimes in the summer, our delays can be 4 to 6 weeks. And during that delay, we were non-communicative with them. And, it was a tough lesson for us to learn at the end as we're starting to collect data is, hey, I just felt like I gave you my money and you disappeared. And it's like, oh, that is not the experience we want at all. So, you've got to think about it. You got to hear from your customers and hear how you're doing. And then, you just got to think through it. And I think that was the thing that you helped us with so much was, every minutia of the details of how you interact with your customer and where they come into your business at. Is it an email, and how do you handle that? Is it a phone call? How do you handle that? What's different about those two, if anything? And then, like you said, just standardizing that experience. And we always joke in our office, we call it the McDonald's experience. But, up until fast food kind of came along, that was a really unique idea, was to make each and every experience the same. And that fast food world is like, yeah, you're going to go through the drive-through. It's going to take X amount of time. You're going to get your burger. It's going to look like this. You're going to get it in a bag. Businesses can learn a lot from that. Now, does that mean that you want to, throw them into a industrial line that just goes through and you stamp them on the forehead as they go? No, you want to definitely make it more personal than that. But, you definitely can do things with that process, like who speaks to them first? What do they do with them next? When do you hand them off to from the sales team to the production team? How does that transition look? When they go to the sales team and they're done with production, and then do they go back to the sales team then at the end to follow up? And what do those things look like? And you just have to really define out for your own business, what are your resources? Are you a company with 100 people that are in this process? Or are you like us? We had 3 people when we started working with you. So we really needed to maximize the use of every person. And then what was really fun after we got done kind of defining things out with you is we were able to take a peek at areas that we could automate. And so not changing our customer experience, because we really believe heavily, our company has been built on great customers and using our customers as a referral basis. Those are our salespeople out there.
Mm-hmm.
But where can you automate to make that black hole go away like we experienced? And, even if it's just that you automate that they get a ping every couple weeks that just says, hey, we're still here. We know you've got a deposit on board. Thanks for sticking with us. Those things really mean a lot. So that automation where you can plug that in is a big deal too.
Absolutely. I agree. And then, so let's talk about a little bit bigger picture in terms of like why documentation is so important in a business.
Oh my goodness. So, pandemic world, right? So everybody's coming and going. And in the 2 years since we've worked with you, we've had 2 people leave in our client experience department, which is the intake area. And we've brought in 2 new people, and then one of those people has already left. And I don't think that's going to change in our world. I think that people are really redefining what it means to work. I think people are redefining what it looks like to be an employee. I think employers are redefining what it looks like to have employees. We didn't have people working offsite before everything hit here, and that's a whole new set of expectations. And what was really beautiful about it is as we had all of the documentation of what we needed to happen, we were able to piecemeal it to figure out, okay, what can they accomplish remotely? And then what needs to be kept in-house because, physically we're still working with paper. A lot of companies are still going to be in that world. We're not completely digital yet. But, as you're looking at even taking a new employee realm where people are going to be working from home, what parts work to have somebody do remotely? How do you communicate that to the rest of your staff now that you have somebody that's kind of working behind a closed door that you can't see any longer? And so, yeah, employee, and then onboarding, we didn't even touch that, just onboarding new employees. Here's your expectations. Here's how to do it. Here are videos to be able to watch. If you're not if you're an auditory and a visual learner versus a, process and just looking at the steps learner, we work with Sweet Process with you, and I'm sure there are other options out there, but Sweet Process has been a great tool for us to be able to, not only have, it just basically covers every part of people's learning and gives people the tools that they need to be successful, and then speeds up your onboarding process.
Oh, for sure. Absolutely. So, and that is the common why of documentation is onboarding. It's basically automation, knowing where to automate after you have it all documented. Working from home or working remotely, that's a big one. So there it can still be consistency and you can monitor also what people are doing, as well as the knowledge transfer, like you were talking about, the people moving in and out of organizations. You have to capture that knowledge. And also, like the story that you told us in the beginning, in terms of you did everything in the back office or behind the scenes, right? But then those are all processes that if they're not documented, then it cannot then be transferred to somebody else. That's why you had the power and the knowledge. In that case, it worked fine. But if it would have been an employee and they would have walked out with that would be a problem. So definitely agree with that. So now another question that I hear often is like, why can't we just do it ourselves? Or I don't know if it's a question or more of a topic that comes up. Can we do it ourselves or not? So what is your experience in terms of doing it, trying to do it yourself, or contemplating doing it yourself, as opposed to actually getting somebody to do it with you and collaborating on that?
Well, I can lovingly say, don't be dumb and think you can do it yourself, because you can't. I am a very process-driven person. So I would say that as a female, I have a very engineering-based mind. We're similar in that realm. And you need someone from the outside, not involved in your industry, or maybe lightly involved in your industry, but they're not in your company, to see. Because we would be chugging along and you would come along and go, okay, wait a minute. What about this? I would also say that the process of documentation, especially from an ownership level, is very general. And, the thing that you miss is, okay, so, when I say something to you like, take the phone call from the customer, and you're like, okay, what do I say? And where do I document this? And what does it look like? And what fields do I enter? And what small things have you done along the way that has, that has um, been agreed upon by the current employees, but the new employee isn't going to know it, like abbreviations and things like that. And I just feel like it's so funny to me that, the employee world, I started my company with a vision. I started my company with a big vision of customer service. And, when we transitioned and my ex-husband left, I was able to transition that vision to employees, but it was verbal, and, or they sat with me. And then, so then I had these two new employees. And so then they kind of picked up the vision. And what you find as you go along is this game of telephone, that what you told the first person isn't what the fourth person is hearing. And along the way, subtleties slip in of habits and different things, where what you're starting with and what you're really proud of and what you really want gets lost along the way. And, I think unless you're really documenting this down to the minutia of, you put this in this field in this manner, and then you move to this next field, that you lose, from one person to the next, or even maybe one day to the next, because we had a transition of space during, before pre-pandemic, and we moved into a new office space, and it changed the dynamics of, this went into this box in this place. And so suddenly we were going, okay, well, where's that box? Where do these papers go now? Well, people made it up as they went along. And then some of us would come in that hadn't been in the office as much with them, and we'd go, wait a minute, where's this? Oh, we're putting it here now. And it's like, so they changed the process, and it wasn't documented or communicated. And so, I just feel like this outside version, and then Adi, you specifically, and I'm just going to say it and you're going to be embarrassed, but I think you just have a brilliant mind when it comes to this kind of stuff. And, you brought things to light that we didn't see. You held us accountable. Oh my gosh, the accountability part, that's huge. You are a bulldog when it comes to that. And I love it, because we needed that. We're still running our business in Mach 5 with our hair on fire. And you're the one that circles back again and says, okay, have you completed this? Because we can't move on until you do. Have you done this? If you're not going to do it, who is going to do it? And so processes, seeing things that you can't see, and then accountability, I think, is probably those two biggest nuggets for wanting to work with somebody from the outside.
Well, thank you, Wendy. I appreciate it. It was definitely, it was awesome. It was fun working with you and Darcy and the team. And, the team, let's talk about the followed by all, right? Because when we finished documenting, then we had a meeting with all the roofers and the supervisors, and we just had them go through the processes and read them and give us feedback. And I think it's something that was definitely outside of their comfort zone, because they were not used to doing that, but they were all participating, and they were helping each other figure out how to get into the software and read it and go through it. What are some tips that you can give in terms of like, how did you continue to implement it and make sure that those processes are being followed by all?
Well, you have to have accountability, and that's coming from me down, right? As the owner of the company, is, check-ins. How are we still doing on this? And the other piece of it is too, is just, making sure that you're checking in, and I would say maybe quarterly, to be sure that those processes that you are using are still working. Because, the world right now is a freight train, and we're all just trying to hang on the outside of it as we're going around curves. And, we've already had processes that we've had to modify, because of what's gone on. And, you have to have your team on board. I think that, I jokingly will say this, but it's kind of a male female thing, right? So the females are in the office, and they're doing the processes, and then you take it to the outside, to the operations guys, and they're like, yeah, I'll get to it. Yeah. And it's like, no, I need you to get to it. I need to become a D in that situation and be like, when are you going to get to it? Hey, I didn't hear from you. That wasn't finished yet. And again, getting that part of the team on board brings the next level of team on board, So yeah, it's just accountability, check-ins, making sure things are still working. And I think the thing that you mentioned that I think we did really well, and I didn't realize it was going to be so good, was involving down to every level of our company, and not saying that, the people in the field are any less than the people in the admin, because they're not. None of our company works without the other. But, they typically don't get involved in things like this.
Right.
And I think it really gave them some pride in our company to be able to have a voice and say, not just from the 10,000 foot level where we're not out there every day saying this is what we're going to say the process is, but we said, here's what we think the process is. Now you guys weigh in and let us know what's real, because 9 times out of 10 as a leader, you will find out that what you want them to do and what they're doing are 2 different things out there in the field. And to engage your team and have them be a part of that, I thought that process is a real loyalty builder. And then it gives them, they're not out there every day doing things that they think are dumb and are wasting their time. So I think it's a good process.
Oh, for sure. Absolutely. Wendy, you really took it to the next level in terms of like really making sure that it's being implemented and everybody is part of the whole team is part of the process, which is great. And that's what made it so successful. So now, okay, so we have the processes. Now I want to talk about a little bit of a different angle of you, which is basically your leadership and the leadership roles that you take. So it's not only that you're running your own company, but you're on a board of directors for the Roofer Association, right? Give me the entire name of the organization.
Oh, Western States Roofing Contractors Association. Yeah, and then Roofing Technology.
And Roofing Technology. So what drives you to take on more responsibility and take on more than just running your own company?
Well, I come from an industry where statistically 50% of our companies fail in the first 5 years, and 80% of the companies fail in the next 5. And, I think that historically that's really related to the fact that people who have a skill, a craftsman or a craftswoman, people who have a skill, open businesses. And in our state, opening a business is very easy. And yet they really don't know what's behind it. And so, I feel a real passion for trying to share the bumps and the things that we've experienced over the 15 years that we've been in business, and maybe trying to help somebody else see that ahead of time and avoid a problem that we've experienced and survived. Or, there's a camaraderie in sharing. And I love this about the feminine side of any industry. I feel like, the females in our world, especially in the Roofing Contractors Association, we're few and far between. I represent 1% of the nation as an owner. And because of that, we've banded together and we really support each other. And we've come from a place of, even if you and I are in the same market, Adi, if you own a roofing business, you can call me at any given point and I will help you. And I just really believe in that giving back part. The Western States one was it is still, I'm still on the board, is a really great place to stay ahead of policy and know what's coming to try to help protect your business. So not only is it a giving back, but there's a lot of receiving there where, I can hear about an industry issue or manufacturing issue way before it hits the normal market, and I can help my company adjust ahead of time. From the pandemic idea, priceless. Being a part of an organization, any organization that stepped up to the plate, and gave us resources at a time when we were all just, what the heck is going on? I don't know if you know, but Washington was one of the few states that was shut down for construction, one of 2 states in the nation. And, because of our industry association, we had connections with attorneys that work in New York, but had some experience in Washington and helped us kind of write some paperwork to navigate. So we continued to work. And, that partnership, that camaraderie that I've learned just as much as I've given, staying ahead of the curve. Those are all just huge parts of giving back in any industry that you happen to work in.
Absolutely. And I think that's part of your success, is the giving back, is the caring, right? So it's thinking not only about your company, but thinking about others as well. And that collaboration definitely is very important. So it's part of these, the giver's gain philosophy, if you would, right? I mean, you give, you serve, you help, and you get back. So that's definitely very inspiring. So what's the future like, Wendy?
I think the future looks bright. I think that, construction is booming, and anytime construction is booming, there should be a little bit of danger signs going off, just in that you start to get fast and furious and forget processes, or things break. And so, we're just trying to keep an eye on what we're doing and how we're doing it, and to keep it moving forward in the manner that we want it to. And then reassessing as we grow and change. And, I love where we are from a customer standpoint. I love our customers. That's just going to grow and change. And, we'll probably be re-engaging with you again here as we scale and start and need somebody again from the outside to look. I don't think I think it's interesting. I don't think there's a there ever. I think that what we have is you're moving along, and you recalibrate for where you are, and then you grow again, and then you recalibrate again. And then, so I think that that's just it's a constant thing that we have to keep doing.
Absolutely. It's a constant improvement.
Yeah.
Wendy, thank you so much for being a guest. Before we finish this podcast, I'd like to give a shout out to Eric Sawyer, who introduced us to begin with, right?
Yep.
So we need to say hello, Eric, and thank you so much. And of course, I would love to give a shout out to Julie Marquis, who's helping you right now.
Yes.
And she is incredible, a good friend of mine. And again, she's an EOS implementer. We have done a whole podcast about how to do an L10 meeting, and she was definitely a wealth of information. And so we all collaborate and work together. And I think that's part of a success, is working with people that you know, like, and trust. So we all lift ourselves up to where we want to be. And if our listeners you service the Southwest Washington area, your company services the Southwest Washington
and Northern and Portland.
Portland and Oregon, of course. So if they want to get a hold of you or your company, what should they do? Where should they call? The website?
Yeah, website, matrixroof.com. And then our office, if anybody wants to email in, it's info@matrixroof.com. And just love to hear from you. If there's anything we can do to help. I don't care if you're in my industry. The thing that's nice is business is business is business. So you could be a concrete contractor, and, we could still share tips that would help. So love to talk to anybody who'd like to reach out.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Wendy. It was a pleasure having you as a guest.
Thanks, Adi. Take care.
Thanks for listening to the System Simplified podcast. We'll see you again next time, and be sure to click subscribe to get future episodes.